YouTube? My name is Kelby Buckner. Thank you for tuning in. This is my new to me, my 1992 Chevy Corvette C4. It took me a very long time to actually find this vehicle. I drove all the way to Naples, Florida to obtain this beautiful car right here. There were so many other options of the cars that if you've seen from the last video, you should check it out. But this car right here actually checked off everything that I was looking for, as the aesthetic, as the nostalgia, the color even got me. If you saw in the first video that there was a picture of a burgundy looking Chevy Impala SS, well, boom, I got a burgundy looking C4 Corvette. So this is a pretty awesome car. What sets it off for me the most is actually the black wheels. The black wheels was like a huge turn on. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really nice. Now, before I get started, there were two Corvettes I was looking at. There was actually a red one in Tampa Bay, Florida. Wouldn't say Tampa Bay, in the Tampa Bay area, I would say. It was a red 1995, I believe, and it had tan interior. It had American Thrust Ds. You know, matter of fact, it looks identical to Jimbo's, from Jimbo's channel's Corvette. It's the same exact wheels, same color red, but it had tan interior, and that one was a 6-speed. The only reason why I turned that car down was because basically it needed work. The owner said that the release bearing was bad, so he didn't trust driving it from Tampa Bay to Broward County, Florida. So I ultimately said no. I ended up driving halfway and stopping at Naples and saw this car. At first, I was like kind of skeptic on looking at it. The color was like, oh, I don't know if I want to get like a purple car. But I was like, you know what? It looked like it could possibly grow on me. So ultimately, what I ended up doing was driving to look at the car. Took me a good while. Took the BMW, actually. It was a nice little road trip. I should have obtained footage of that, but I was pretty anxious to get this car. So ultimately, when I got there, I saw the car. It was backed in the guy's driveway, and I looked at it and I was like, yes, this car looks way better than it did in the pictures versus all the other C4 Corvettes that I looked at. There was a lot of things that appealed to me to this car to make me say, you know what, I might get it. Let's go over a couple of things, I should say. Now, there's a couple of things that I saw with this car that I really liked from the get-go. And to be honest with you, he did not even mention that in the ad, which kind of blew my mind. It had brand new tires all around. The fender liners were all brand new. It looks like he installed it yesterday. The car was pretty much been repainted already. It wasn't really a bad paint job, but the car was significantly repainted. It has this nice diffuser in the back here, what kind of caught my eye. I wasn't a fan of diffusers on cars, but to me, it personally looked very well on the C4 Corvette. The brake pads were new, the rotors were new. When I fired it up, it sounded very nice. I was very impressed by the way how it sounded when I started it up. The owner basically said, here, take the keys, go for a drive for it. So that's exactly what I did. Pretty much drove it for a drive, and I'm not gonna lie, it took corners around it, chirped gears. I was very impressed with the way how it drove. So ultimately, I was like, man, this might be it. It had been the best Corvette that I've seen out of all the other ones from the previous video. This one was the best one that topped or pretty much that checked every single mark that I was looking for. I wanted a dark color Corvette, and this was basically the darkest one I could find, actually. A couple things that I've done to the car since I've gotten the car already. For the majority of the things, I will be putting that on the video and show you guys what I will be doing with this car. So basically, if you look at this car, I just love the stance and the way how it sits. It sits very, very nice, very gangster looking, lean, sleek, black, darked out. I like that. You know, that's what kind of appealed to me versus all the other Corvettes I was looking at. I love the black wheels. These are actually the CR1 type wheels. Very, very beautiful, especially how it's blacked out. It looks very, very nice. I probably want to do something with the calipers eventually. I don't know, I'll probably change the color, make it red, probably do gold, who knows. The one thing I noticed is getting inside and outside of the car. when I got it. So I'll show you. This huge door sill right here is a pain in the butt to get in and out of, yo. It's like, geez, it's just a lot of work. It's not a car you just jump in and sit in. You got to really like get down in there and position yourself, as you were about to see right now. So whenever I get in this car, I just basically come down, drop down like this. I always have the steering wheel up, drag my feet over like that, pull the seat down, and then I'm in. I gotta get used to that. It's basically a routine. I never touch the steering wheel. I'll show you that in a second. And then what I used to do, push my elbows, and that's how I ultimately get out of the car every single time. So now we're onto the rear of the vehicle. First thing I noticed was the tail lights. The tail lights were darker. They were a darker color compared to what I saw before, which was, I was like, wow, these are beautiful. The factory Corvette comes with brighter light, so that kind of set a tone to how the car is sitting. It was really what appealed to me the most. I love how the Corvette was written out in black. I may have to redo them. It's not really perfect anymore. But also the rear gas lid. Just so you know, a lot of people who don't know about Corvettes, the C4 era, the gas lid is in the center of the vehicle. So it doesn't matter which pump you go to, it's always in the middle. Chevy Impalas are the exact same way as well. A lot of older Chevys back in the day had it in the center, like Chevelle's. You can't see a field door. It's either behind the license plate. Speaking of license plate, I know you like my Keltec license plate. So if you like what you're seeing so far, please like, share, and subscribe. It has a little bit of blemishes. Some of it is on my part. I bought a cheap Amazon car cover, and I deeply regret it because it left a huge stain on the hood where it looks like I got to get the car repainted just to fix that portion, which is, it's okay. It's a learning curve. I'm now a Corvette owner. So what I do now, I went ahead and bought me a pretty pricey car cover, and that's what I use now. Actually, they sent me two of them. Actually, I have two of them now. So when one fails, I'll ultimately have another one. Let's hear how this car sounds. This thing sounds nice. So ultimately, me and the owner, we worked on an agreement, and yes, I drove home with this. Very excited day of my life to drive this car home. And I checked off another chapter in life. When I was in high school, I never really paid attention to these cars, but when I was in college and I got to work on one, that's when I said to myself, these aren't bad. I hope to own one of these someday. And look, that someday's here. All right, so let's start it up and go for a spin. I love that it starts right up. You can't beat that. All right, so yeah, so the initial test drive was very awesome. Well, ultimately, the car has been a great buy, a great pick out of all the other cars. Again, if you've seen the first video that I made, I saw a bunch of horrible ones. And yeah, it is an automatic. The reason why I chose it to be automatic, because to be honest with you, I saw the potential in this car right away, and basically A lot of the manual transmissions Corvette I kept finding and kept looking at, even on Auto Trader, Marketplace, they all had an issue. They all had one flaw. They all needed work. So far, this car, when I test drove it, looked at it, realized it really didn't need any much work that I found so far. And that was the most appealing part of it. And I loved it, you know. It was a game changer for me. And ultimately, I had to take it. The drive back was pretty good, so I couldn't even complain. I love how it sounds. Surprisingly, I looked under the exhaust system. This is a bone stock system. Everything was stock. Compared to every other one, they had their own customization to it. This car was bone stock compared to all the other ones. Well, since I've owned the car, I changed a couple things, I would say. I changed the radio. The radio had some old looking Clarion radio. It's an old school 90s radio. You guys remember Clarion? Nothing wrong with the brand, but I needed something more updated. I went ahead and installed Apple CarPlay, and that was a game changer in itself. Um, I went ahead and actually, as soon as I got the car, I went ahead and redid the tinted windows on the vehicle. Um, it was kind of faded. It didn't even look like it had tinted windows. It was almost like a 35% tint. I wanted something a little darker to fit the aesthetic of the car. So ultimately, I went ahead and got it. Darker tints. When I met the guy and saw the car, it was drawn to me to the point where I was like, man, I gotta get this car. So the original owner wanted $6,000 for the car. I spoke to him and said, hey, look, is the car in pretty good condition? He's like, yeah, man, absolutely. So I'm like, okay, cool. So he wanted $6,000 for the car. So I ultimately went over there, drove an hour and 45 minutes to go look at the car. When I looked at the car, pulled up to the guy's driveway, I saw that it was backed in. I was like, oh man, this thing looks nice just sitting there in the guy's driveway. So came out, looked at the car. Basically, again, handed me the keys and said, go drive it. I drove it around and found that it was quick. It even chirped gears. That's the part that really got me too. It chirped gears. Once it chirped gears, I was like, okay, it's nice. And as you can see, this is exactly how it sounded, how it looked essentially when I got it. So we tried to work on the price. I started looking over everything I could find that wasn't working on the car. So I looked and found the major issue was it has no air conditioning. To this day, it has no air conditioning. And that is a whole nother episode that I will do to try to see if we could isolate where this thing is going bad, where it's not working with the air conditioning. I told him, and if you look on AutoZone for AC compressor for this car, it is not cheap. I found that it costs like Advanced Auto Parts and AutoZone. They're going for $1,000 just for the compressor alone. So I told the guy, yo, man, I even showed him, like, look, AutoZone has it for $1,000, and I gotta pay someone to charge it and recharge it. So he didn't know that I knew how to work on cars. A tech tip: if you guys ever looking to buy a car, never disclose that you know how to work on cars, because most likely they're gonna say, "Well, you can fix it." No, my mechanic could fix it. So I ended up dropping the price down a whole grand. He was like, "All right, cool." So 6,000 went to 5,000. So the next thing, I started looking over the car. I started saying, all right, well, and after looking at the next items of the cars, I didn't really see much else that was wrong with the car, to the point I'm like, oh man, the car is really good. So I started testing the seats. So I checked the passenger seat and found out that the seat motor is not working. So the track is fine. it'll slide back and forth. The driver's side, same. Well, the driver's side works barely fine. It's kind of slow. So ultimately, it's like, look, man, the seat can't even move. I can't adjust the position of the seat. So ultimately, bro, man, we're gonna have to work something out here. This is gonna cost me about like $500 each, bro. So tell you what, man, I'll make you an offer of like 4,300, and he's like, no, 4,300 is not good. So I'm like, okay, what would you want to do? So he said, and I ultimately agreed with it. So ultimately we agreed, and we shook on $4,500. And I was like, man, I can't go wrong with this car. There's so much stuff. It was perfect. There was nothing else really wrong with the car. The lights work, turn signal works. A lot of things work with the car. I was like, man, I was surprised that he was selling it for so cheap. He just said he just wants to get rid of it. It was like, it said it was his son's car. His son doesn't really like it. So I'm like, okay, I'm a Corvette guy now. So I guess I could say I took over the throne for this car, man. But what my plans to do with this car is basically pretty simple. I want to modify it to make it faster. My original thought of when I got it was like, you know what? I'm an all motor guy. I was gonna say, you know what? Start building the engine up. Probably change the heads, because this is an LT1. I was gonna remove the heads and put LT4 heads, but that's gonna be kind of pricey. So I was like, all right, you know what? Let's consider forced induction. Forced induction is possibly the most popular thing to do in the time of the age of the car. It's probably the best bet for the car. So I was like, you know what? There's a guy I met on Instagram that he has a C4 Corvette with a rear turbo mounted exhaust system. And I was like, yo, that's awesome. So he showed me his setup, the way how he laid it out. And I was like, okay, that's possible. But then I started thinking, what's the most common part to install on a Mustang or Camaro and Corvette? It is a supercharger. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am most probably will be installing a supercharger on this C4 right here. Why? Because, man, I really got dreams and aspiration for this car. I feel like I got something going positively for me for obtaining this car. So once I get this car up to speed, I'm really looking to get possibly 450-ish. If I could get like 4 something, I'll be great, and I'll be a nice little toy to drive around, because this was 300 horsepower in 1992. So God knows how much horsepower it has now. If it has more, if I could get 400, I'll keep up with most modern cars, because even 4-cylinders are producing 300 horsepower now. This is a V8, so ultimately that is my goal with this car. And yeah. Well, let me know in the comments if you think this was a good buy. I certainly think it's a good buy. The only thing where a lot of people probably would say is that it is an automatic transmission, which is fine. Worst case scenario, if I'm really like desperate for a manual transmission, I will put a T56 Tremec or transmission in here, a manual transmission in this car, and put the clutches. That would be a cool build. So eventually, that's what I'm going to be basically looking through to obtain. So like I said, guys, it's going to be an interesting one. Once I get that forced induction or modified done, this car will be a top tier C4, I would say. It looks great. So basically the body of the car doesn't really need much. It's just really modification. Now, that it's not it's not 100% perfect, I would say. There's little things I will do, and that's extra video content. What I will do is upload videos of doing some of the repairs. It needs a tune-up, obviously. The oil change is very easy. It's standard Chevy GM type of oil change, so it's very easy. So Possibly I'll do the spark plugs, the wires, and the dreaded OptiSpark. I'm kind of afraid to do the OptiSpark because you got to remove the water pump. You got to remove basically the whole front intake, not the intake, the air filter box. The water pump comes out. All that stuff gets out the way just to even mess with the OptiSpark, and it's a big job. I looked up the labor times. Well, the labor cost to do the repairs. Most shops charge about $2,000 just to do that. So most likely, probably I will be doing that myself, and that should be interesting. But as of right now, this car runs great. It runs very good. I really can't complain to the car about the car. Sounds nice. It shifts gears. I even punched it when I first got it. He told me to take the car basically around the neighborhood, do whatever, just bring it back. So I took it around the corner. I punched it. It slid. I was like, what? I was like, yeah, this was the best, man. And it feels comfortable. I love the black interior, yo. The black interior is what got me too, man. I'm saying this car is perfect for what I'm looking for. It fits the bill. You know what I'm saying? I feel like when Bruce Wayne got inside the tumbler for the very first time in that scene, and he was like, does this car come in black? This car is like, oh wow, yeah, it's that same feeling. So hopefully we'll see how it goes on the next couple episodes. But I am certainly glad that every one of y'all sent the positive feedbacks about the comments, and showed a lot of interest into the car or into me actually obtaining it. And this is it. So I thank all of y'all for watching. I hope to see you guys on the next episode and see more everyone in the episode, and other fellow content creators that have Corvettes as well, C4 Corvettes. Reach out, give me a shout out. Let's come up with a car club in the South Florida for C4s, because to be honest with you, there's not any at all. I've been to Cars and Coffee yesterday with this car, and to be honest, my car is the only C4 you would ever see in the area. So it stands out to itself, which is great. But I would love to see more C4s. I've seen older C4s in my neighborhood or around the area, but they're not like LT1 C4s. They're the L98. So I would love to see more C4 Corvette. So again, I thank you all for watching. Hope to see you guys on the next one. Please like, share, and subscribe. And again, let me say, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.